making people realize that climate change is very real. It's very real. It's not in the not too distant future. It's happening right now. People already forgot that last year, 1/3 of Pakistan was underwater. 1/3 of the entire country was flooded. It's happening. It's all very real. You can have full-on California wildfires burning down large parts of the United States, where even the super rich have to move. Oh no, the rich have been affected. Their mansions are being burnt to a cinder. And have Republicans on the other end still say things like, this is all exaggerated, it's all made up, it's all a myth. Why is it that there's still winter time? Why is it that snow still falls on the ground in December? I ask you that. Hey everyone, I want to talk for 2 seconds before I talk about the world on fire, which we are going to have to talk about because the world's on fire. I'm in Vancouver, by the way. Vancouver is already smoky. It's smoky in Vancouver. The wildfire season starts in May now. It used to start in August, and that was just something that people accepted as normal. It's like August rolled around, then all of a sudden everyone's like, weird how the city suddenly turns into that scene from Blade Runner where it's all orange because of all the smoke and pollution, and the air quality is so intense that you can't go outside. Yeah, so that happens in Vancouver in August. Or it did in the past. Now it's now. So that's terrible and shitty and horrifying, and we should probably do more about this and stop ignoring the whole planet on fire stuff. It's going to be so much more expensive, capitalists, to go down this road. I hope you all know that. Tyranno Seahorse, thank you so much. Seattle is smoky too. Yep. Sometimes you see us Canadians and Americans, we battle each other every year. So sometimes the fires in California, because of how the wind blow, moves its way up to Vancouver, and that sucks. And then sometimes our forest fires, which is probably what's going to happen here. If you're smoky in Seattle, that's probably coming from here, unless it could be coming from California as well, because everywhere's on fire. Yeah, just everywhere. Yeah, so fun. Good stuff. Great stuff. But before I cover that, I did want to quickly talk about this. Everyone who loves science, facts, data, logic, you know that the biggest form of theft in the good old US of A, Canada as well, is wage theft. People stealing from their employees in one way or another. That's the biggest form of theft. You wouldn't know that watching the TVs and the propagandas and all that kind of stuff, because on television it really looks like people are stealing a whole bunch of, like, you know, stuff from Target. They really love stealing all those things from Target. So Target says organized retail crime is worsening and will fuel 500 million more of lost and stolen merchandise this year than last year. 500 million. It's a lot of fucking merch. One wild thing about the organized retail crime panic is that we have almost no reliable sources. Cops want to infiltrate their own importance and pad their budgets, while retailers want to offload their security costs onto taxpayers. To put this particular story into perspective, the FBI estimated the total cost of all larceny in 2019 was $5.9 billion. Target's management is trying to imply that there's something like 10 to 20% of that figure is occurring entirely within Target stores. Transparent bullshit. But they can just do that. They can just say that. They're like, yes, we expect to lose about $500 million worth of merchandise being stolen by violent criminals. Yes, violent criminals with melanin. Oh, the melanin-having criminals that burst into the stores and steal everything. If you look closely at the corporate statements, it's very clear that the businesses themselves have very little vision on how merchandise is stolen versus otherwise lost. That's another big thing, too. Not that I'm surprised by corporate shamelessness, but it's quite something to watch another retail behemoth trot out this excuse when they just want Walgreens admitted that they've been overstating their claims of theft. Oh, Walgreens is doing it too? Walgreens maybe cried too much about shoplifting concerns last year, executive says. A Walgreens executive said Thursday that the drugstore chain may have overplayed concerns about shoplifting in its stores. Maybe we cried too much last year. That's a rich thing to say. Yeah, very, very rich thing to say. Yeah. All right, I gotta talk about the planet burning. Climate movement implores G7 leaders to ditch fossil fuels for good. The G7 in Hiroshima is an opportunity for the PM Kishida and other leaders to deliver a clear and renewable energy agenda for a peaceful world. Peaceful world is a very important part about this entire thing, because as there is more climate change, there's going to be far more destabilization. Because people are going to want to move to places where there's not extreme drought and fire and, temperatures hitting 40 to 45 degrees every single day. They're going to want to move to cooler pastures. And as they want to move to cooler pastures, of course, there's going to be, the immigrants are coming. So many, more than ever, actually. Tons and tons of immigrants. What are we going to do? And that's usually fertile ground, unfortunately, for strong men to come up and say that they have a solution to all this. Now, in America, they're already doing that all the fucking time. That's basically, what do we do when we're not actually helping the people, our constituents? Let's blame it all on the immigrants. Or let's blame it on now, the other scapegoat happens to be trans people. You see people like Ted Cruz coming out and making statements about how there needs to be, and he said this, an investigation into Bud Light and what they did with their Dylan Mulvaney sponsorship, which was, again, one social media post. That's all it took. One social media post. It's absolutely ridiculous. Let me just pull that up for 1 second, just so you know I'm not just talking out of my ace. Day 58 of the right melting down over a trans woman being sent a can of beer with her face on it. Senator Ted Cruz demands an investigation. Cruz demands probe of Bud Light ties to Mulvaney. Probe. So this is going to be what people spend their taxpayer dollars on. Something that is completely transparent. It's an open sponsorship. The person who did the sponsor knows that they were sponsored when they received the money for the sponsorship. I just did the probe for you. There you go. Could you maybe spend whatever money this probe is about to cost on, I don't know, housing? Lowering the cost of fuel? Stuff like that. And you know why this shit happens, by the way? Thank you, Brizzy B, for the rating party at 2. Everyone go to twitch.tv/BrizzyB. Do you know why this happens? This happens specifically because of the culture wars. This is the culture war spilling out into politicians who then think they can win in the hearts and minds of people by doing the culture war. You know? It's absolutely ridiculous. If people like Tim Pool spend all day being like, oh, this is an open wound. Oh my God, we demand justice. How could Dylan Mulvaney have wronged us? Bud Light, you're treasonous. Well, then politicians on the other end are like, oh, so this is what I guess people care about. This is what my constituents care about. So yeah, the culture wars may seem absolutely absurd and ridiculous, but here's them playing out into politics. You know that fucking Steve Bannon statement where it's all like, you know, culture is downstream from politics or upstream from politics? One of the two. I'm not entirely sure in what direction he was moving there. He's quite confusing at times. But that's actually a broken clock statement. It is very important to understand how politics can play out and how culture wars can fucking spill into everyday, like, the dinner table, the conversations that you have, the very things that you speak about. Yes, it is actually important. It's why speaking about civil rights is important. It's also why making people realize that climate change is very real. It's very real. It's not in the not too distant future. It's happening right now. People already forgot that last year, 1/3 of Pakistan was underwater. 1/3 of the entire country was fucking flooded. It's happening. The shit is all very real. A group of 7 leaders and representatives from other key countries traveled to Japan for a 3-day summit to start on Friday. The global movement for climate action is renewing demands for swiftly shifting away from planet heating fossil fuels. This is also a golden fucking opportunity. All right, the very concept of the Green New Deal. Yes, I know some people have tried to poke holes in various aspects of it, but transform a green economy into a job creating program. Yes, we'll have to shut down a lot of fucking horrible industries in the pursuit of this, but we're also going to begin a lot of new industries. So part of that cost, and they included it in the Green New Deal, is for jobs training, to be able to move people who work in coal plants or people who work in oil industries or stuff like that, to get them the jobs training they need to be able to work in more clean energy initiatives. And also, we also need to bring up and bring back to the table nuclear power. The technology for nuclear power has come so far from the horrifying versions of nuclear power that you saw in the past, you know, where it's basically like The Simpsons, where there's these big silos that are having nuclear exhaust, and then they put all the goo and ooze into the cans, and then that's what created the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or something like that. Like, that's the version of nuclear power that you all have in your minds. Modern nuclear power is very, very different. And again, I try to equate it like comparing the old light bulbs we used to use, because we did use really shitty light bulbs, very energy inefficient light bulbs. We then moved on to these energy saving light bulbs, but they actually have mercury inside them, so they're also quite bad, to LEDs. And LEDs are fucking amazing, incredible technology that actually do give you a lot more luminance for the amount of energy that you need to put into them. So yeah, there's that whole thing. The G7 Leaders Summit in Hiroshima represents a crucial juncture at which the world's most powerful nations have the opportunity to demonstrate true leadership and make good on their promises. There is no point powering up renewables without powering down fossil fuels. This is true. This is the reason why the fossil fuel industry for fucking decades knew about all this, knew what was going to happen, and decided, you know what, we need to now put a lot of money into making people think this isn't real. We need to sow doubt, as it were, and then make a lot of people confused about this. And to this day, you can have fucking full-on California wildfires burning down large parts of the United States, where even the fucking super rich have to move. Oh no, the rich have been affected. Their mansions are being burnt to a cinder. And have Republicans on the other end still say things like, this is all exaggerated, it's all made up, it's all a myth. Why is it that there's still winter time? Why is it that snow still falls on the ground in December? I ask you that. Andre Sieber, 350org's Associate Director of Global Policy, pointed out that the summit comes after a year of global suffering due to fossil fuel-driven inflation, soaring energy prices, and exorbitant profits for oil corporations, following the G7's 2022 pledge to end international fossil fuel support. Stressing the necessity of cutting off international public financing of fossil fuels, Simone Ogno, finance and climate campaigner for the Italian group Recommon, said that what will emerge from the G7 will also strongly influence the decisions. Earlier this year, Oil Change International exposed multiple countries for breaking their promises to stop pouring money into international fossil fuel projects and releasing a briefing on how top economies, including G7 nations like Japan, United States, Italy, and Germany, have dumped billions into new liquefied natural gas. And we already heard what the right think about natural gas. They have been fooled by the name. Like, what's his face? Sean Hannity was trying to tell Marianne Williamson yesterday, well, I mean, this is clean, though. It's natural gas. It's natural. Yes. All fucking gas is natural by definition. If you think that it's like, what are you saying right now? No, it is not clean. Like, that is such a fucking well-funded and well propagandized myth that people actually fall into. Leaders of the G7 nations, which include Canada, France, and the United Kingdom, plus the European Union, are headed to Hiroshima after their climate, energy, and environmental ministers met in Sapporo last month and crafted a 36-page communique that critics has said shows a shameful disregard for what people on the planet urgently need. Yes, if they're not doing what is necessary, then politicians are completely fine with the destabilization of society. And that's basically like even doing like, oh, we're taking a lot of measures right now, initiatives, if you will, stuff that, yes, probably should have been done probably like 40 or 50 years ago, but we're doing them and we're going to play catch up. No, the amount of carbon that's already in the atmosphere is the problem. You know, we don't really have efficient carbon capture technology that can get rid of the carbon. So continuously to pour more carbon is just going to have disastrous consequences, and it's accelerating everything. And yes, it's a horrifying like Rube Goldberg machine where all of a sudden a lot of fucking things can occur in tandem, like permafrost defrosting and releasing methane, which has like 10 times the amount of CO2 levels. Disastrous, absolutely disastrous. Look, I had charro beans for dinner last night. Let me tell you, my friend, this can't see. All right. This is good. Fart jokes are helping get through some of the horrifying reality of this entire story. So I welcome them. Bring on your fart jokes. Release. Well, we just saw a month ago that G7 countries are successfully pushing back against Japan-led push for gas investments in fossil fuels. We now see Germany pushing the G7 to endorse gas investments in the United States by approving financing for an oil refinery in Indonesia. We cannot afford backsliding, and the G7 must urgently get on track for 1.5. Like, I'm really fucking terrified at the prospect that you're starting to see this acceptance of 1.5 because we're going to barrel past it. This kind of like, well, yeah, we did say that 1.5 degrees would have disastrous effects for society and the planet writ large. We're going to hit it. So now we should kind of get into the mindset of what could we do to get below a 2? You know, we're kind of aiming for a below a 2 right now. Going to the summit, campaigners are taking aim at its host. Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida has acted on a laggard on the global stage by attempting to block a phase out of coal and pushing false solutions like ammonia co-firing. What the fuck is that? Dangerous nuclear. No, stop this. And LNG into the Sapporo communique. The G7 in Hiroshima is an opportunity for the PM Kishida and other leaders to deliver a clear and renewable energy agenda for a peaceful world. And peaceful world is also something that should be stressed. This is going to have massive repercussions and costs with the destabilization that's going to occur, not to mention the increase in climate terrorism. I think that's what they call it when people are doing, what they call extremist acts, such as, gluing themselves to the front of buildings. How could they, those scientists, those goddamn scientists, using their scientist dollars to buy the glue? It is time for President Biden to take responsibility and ensure that the G7 is not co-opted for global LNG expansion and industry greenwashing. And by the way, every single country, doesn't matter where you're watching me from, doesn't matter if you're in Canada or if you're in Santiago right now, it doesn't matter where you are. This is a global problem. It's a global problem that requires global solutions. We need to band together. Yes, the water wars. That's gonna fucking happen. Do you want the water war? Yeah, I can't even say it. That's how awful it is. But do you want that? I don't. I really like the new Mad Max film. I thought it was a very entertaining film. But in no part was I watching that thinking, that's for me. That's for me. I think I could do okay. I'm not entirely sure, but I do want to be witnessed. I like being witnessed. So yeah, this seems good. Furiosa seems kind of fun. You know, she seems like she can really kick some ass. So yeah, what is what's his face saying in that movie? He's like, "Give not in to temptation. Don't become addicted to water." Yeah, well, we kind of all are in that we needed to live. So yeah, it's not good. As residents of Southwest Louisiana, I have seen firsthand the devastating impact that gas exported terminals have had on our wetlands and communities. For the United States and the G7 to continue doubling down on this suicidal fossil fuel dependency, one that inflicts suffering on already overburdened communities like mine and will inflict unlivable suffering for future generations, is beyond careless. And again, the whole story with Pakistan being 1/3 out underwater, they contributed globally like something ridiculous. I think it was like 1% or less. No, it was less than 1% of global emissions, or something like that. It was either way. Like, don't quote me on that. I'm talking out of my ass, but it was ridiculous when you compare the amount that country is contributing towards the global climate crisis versus the devastating impacts climate change is having on Pakistan. Do not, my friends, become addicted to water. It will take hold of you, and you will resent its absence. What a great movie. Like, there's so many times when you hear that someone is going to make a movie fucking like 20 years after the previous iteration, and then you're like, no, please stop, don't do this. And that was just it was such a glorious spectacle of explosions and carnage. And like, when you think about it, the entire film is just a chase sequence from start to finish. And yet it was amazing. Not to mention woke as fuck. Yeah. Great work. Amazing work, you know? Just gotta say. Big fan of Mad Max. The new one. Do you enjoy the Serfs but prefer not to have to use your eyeballs? Many are saying this. Well, we've got the solution for you. It's the Serf Times in podcast form. Available on most major podcasting networks now. If you enjoy it, please consider leaving a good review and feedback because it really helps the show out, apparently, and it's free, just like the podcast.
To our gods, Xander Corvus and Peyton L. Juste, we shall spend many a generations building mighty cathedrals in your honor. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, we are but your oafish jesters, here to offer you a laugh at any opportunity. To our brave knights of the Round Table, Rachel K., Izzy Solidarity, Victoria Bell, Sebastian Demmel, Mark Harmon, Benji Arney, Scary Earth Human, Tony, DM Rivera, Resident Scarecrow, Sir Nickus, Cheryl Alvarez, Ruby Kelly, Brandon, Words Greenwood, Everything Important, Hegbert Celine, Matthew Scarborough, Stellar Vision, Ariane McCarthy, Doug Cady, Daniel Sutton, Jenna Tao, Dark Puppy, Quiet One 85, Anna Loves Riley, Omni, Riley and Anna, Poodlehawk, Multimondi, Trevbot EXE, Brian Ephraim, Anthropophojack, Catherine, Ramon Acosta, Incosin, Ralph Parler, Violent Orchard, Political Puppy, La Media Panza, Todd Buckingham, and Todd La Jeunesse. We salute our valiant heroes off to fight injustice everywhere.